So today we wanted to talk about how to do a meat duck contest calling routine. This isn't going to be about how to blow your duck call. This isn't going to be about individual sounds or how to do like a feeder call. This is just going to be how to put the routine together and any tips on that. As you probably know, I'm not the greatest caller, but I reached out to some good friends, and that's where Bobby Hayes from Ducklander calls, and he brought his friend TC over. And these guys are going to give you a bit of a tutorial on meat contest calling and maybe a little bit of what the difference between meat and open is. So, TC, I wanted to open it up to you and go ahead and talk about meat duck calling.
So in a meat duck calling routine, the basis you really want to start with is thinking about you calling ducks in the field. You start out, they're ways away out, you basically hit a hail call. So a lot of guys do anywhere from 2 to 3 strings of hail calls. You don't want to, and it's not the ringing hail that you hear in Stuttgart. It's your meat style hunting hail, a little bit louder, and you kind of just string that down. And then a lot of guys will take in that second one, they'll start working down to their medium volumed hens. And in your hens, there's a couple different styles. So like you have some guys that want to focus on their flow. Some guys go with the amount of different sounds and ducks they can make. And the best way to put it is you want to keep the best flow possible. You don't want to have it super choppy to where it's loud and then super soft, then jump it back up to fast and then super loud again. You kind of want to always think about it in a stair-stepping manner. You want to work it down from your hails, and your hens start out louder and then work their way softer. And once you get into basically your softest hen, then you start in your feed call. You run into your feed call, and then all of a sudden the dog spooks the ducks, and then you're trying to work them back into you, turn them around. So you jump back on it loud, fast. You're trying to call them back, and then you basically start in on your ducks again, work them down as you're hitting them on the corners, and then you go into a feed call, and you're kind of working them down just getting quieter and quieter. Then you just hit your closeout, and it's just whack, 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 as you're finishing ducks. You really just want to focus on the picture and the painting of the picture of just working ducks as you are in the field. And that's basically what a meat contest routine is. And that's the nice part about a meat contest routine is you can blow the same duck call that you hunt with. You don't have to have a special duck call. Basically think of it like you're hunting. With a meat routine, you have 90 seconds of the contest, your routine. The light will come on at 80 seconds, and you have 10 seconds to finish. But if you go past that 90 seconds, you're going to be disqualified. That's a big one. So you want to watch your time and make sure you're taking breaths through there where you don't run out of breaths. In the middle of your routine.
So what happens if you go too short? Like say I do a 60-second routine instead of 90. You just didn't have it.
You're not going to get docked any, but a good judging panel will know basically the length. They'll kind of know the length that they should be hearing. And if you cut it off super short, they'll notice you were rushed, your tempo, and then they'll associate that with nerves and being uncomfortable. And then they won't dock you, but you won't score as high as the guy that basically filled up the routine.
Okay.
And that's my biggest problem is I end up running it short just because I'm so amped up. I run out of breath.
Okay.
It is a structure. So if you have all of the structure there, it is right at the time.
Correct.
So if you're that short, you kind of miss something or you rushed it really badly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Whether you missed a duck, because you can kind of tell just the flow of the routine. If you missed a duck in there, if you cut your feed call a little bit short, or if you missed a whole section of the routine, it's pretty apparent if you cut it that short. Like my routine runs anywhere from 79 to 82 seconds. And the 79, when I play it back, I can tell where I was rushed. And that just comes with a lot of practice.
Yeah. And that's basically, you're trying to tell a story here, is what you were describing there, right? Like you're trying to bring those birds in, you're feeding them to get them laying down, and they get spooked, and then okay. And
yep.
Pardon me?
And you just basically work them back into the blind. I mean, like, say your buddy popped up, went to shoot before the shot was called, and then you start working them back around, and then you finally do get to kill them.
Perfect.
If you've listened to a lot of routines and the routines are sound, it doesn't matter where you would pick up the sound in the routine. You can tell what part it is if it's done well.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know if he's on his comeback versus hail versus first set of feed versus second set or his finish. Like you can pick it up right off the bat if the routine is good.
Okay. And for the actual feeder call, like, do you have to be, those machine gun quick stuff for the meat calls or the meat routines?
No. So that's another thing that differentiates it from a Main Street routine. You want to have a faster choppy feed, but you don't want to roll it. You want to just bounce it around in and out, speed it up at times, slow it down, and just a lot of different. The best feed will sound back and forth with ducks mixed in between it. You never want to roll it because then they're going to associate that with a Main Street routine.
Okay. So,
and the guys put a lot of personality into the feed on a meat routine.
Exactly, because the feed is what truly differentiate yourself. Everybody kind of has the same ducks. I mean, to a point with their own style, but the feed is where a contest is won and lost, in my opinion.
You might have a guy that has more ducks or less ducks, or maybe you've got somebody that's just really powerful on hens. But the feed that everybody feeds different.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So coming up to my first competition, right? I go up on stage. I practice a little bit beforehand, right?
Yep.
When you get up on stage, from the second you set foot on that stage, go through what's going to happen. I'm going to get a little bit of time to make sure my call's fine. Like, let me know what's going on there.
At every contest, you're going to have a bullpen that is behind the judges or to the side of it where the judges cannot see you. They will be blinked off, whether that's a curtain. They may be in kind of like a blocked off room that is separate from the contest stage. You're going to walk around to the stage, and the MC will ask you, do you need a warm-up? Nod your head. Once you step on that stage, you are not allowed to speak at all because the judges will be able to hear your voice, and they can tell your voice. I mean, if you've been to enough of them, you're going to walk up there. They're going to ask if you want a warm-up, nod your head, and they're going to say, this is a warm-up. You can warm up for anywhere from 5 seconds to 5 minutes, and
I don't think there's a time on it, is there? Like, you do whatever you want.
No, I watched Trevor Shanahan go through 3 different calls one time.
Yeah.
Bubble to read, and I mean, like on 2 different ones in his warm up. You can spend as much time up there as you want, as long till you're comfortable. And then you're just going to nod your head, and they're going to say, this is for real. And then after that is when your judging will start. But the 90-second clock will not start until your first note of your call comes out of the exhaust of your call.
So that's when you start your hail call, like, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Good. And then you do your 90-second routine, get off the stage, still don't say nothing, right? Because those judges, they're listening to that story that you're telling.
Exactly.
They're not looking at you. They're not looking at you. Like, sometimes you see those guys doing a turkey call routine where they're flapping and they're pretending they're a turkey and stuff. Like, they're not even looking at that. That's the audience might see it, but these judges don't see that, right?
The judges will never see you, or in a properly ran contest, they will never see you, just because that keeps the bias out of it.
Yeah. Good.
And that's the best way.
Okay.
Define hail call for him, TC, because when you say that, a lot of guys are going to think of Main Street and a ring.
So a hail call on a meat style contest call to me is basically maxing out your hunting call without it getting, how would you describe that Main Street sound, that
Your loudest, fattest hen.
Yeah, it's just a big
thickest hen.
That's basically a hail without it ringing. And a lot of your hunting style calls won't ring at all. So a lot of guys won't even have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I was thinking we could maybe do is you could go through the little sections, but
so a hail call would start out and sound something like this. just, you basically want to do 2 of the same biggest ducks you can produce out of your call.
Yeah. And you're not doing that ringing part though, where you're pushing the limits of a call. You're doing your actual hunting, right?
Exactly what you would do in the field. You see ducks 1,000 yards away and you're trying to pull them off the next spread away from you.
Okay. And then after that, you're going to transition into a feeder.
You're going to transition into your hens, which is basically working the ducks. And my hens go something like this.
You could also call them greeters.
So as you saw there, I hit my loudest one first, and then I just worked it down and a little bit slower. It's softer. And then I will back it up into my feed call.
Okay.
My feed call, I'll go through because I think of the feed section as basically 2 parts, because you're going to mix a duck in the middle of it. So I'll put both sections in there together. This is where I'm going to kind of work it back up, and I'm going to pick them up or speed it up, get louder as the ducks are flying off. I'm going to go into my second set of hens. Then I'm going to go into my last feed. This is where your closeout is. Typically, it's 3 quacks and then just a big duck. And then now I'm going to put it all together.
Okay, guys, so that is what a full routine would sound like from TC there. So I guess the next step would be like, where are you taking your breaths? Because I can't just blow out for 90 seconds straight, right? So what are you doing to make sure that you have air coming in?
So on a breath, the biggest thing to remember is never fully empty your tank. Always keep some in there, because if you have to take to fully fill up your lungs and stuff, the judges will hear that and it'll take a second long of a pause. So I take basically a half breath in between each hail, and then I take a half breath before I start my hens, and then another half breath in between right before I go into my feed, and then I start my first set of feed. I hit a little duck in there. I take basically a quarter breath, and I finish out my feed after that. And then you're basically working into your step up into your other hands. I take a full breath, work it all the way down through my hands. Right before I start my last feed, I take one more breath. I go through my feed. And then in my closeout, I take a small breath in between each quack. And that's basically it. So there's really only about 7 spots I take a breath, and they're never full breaths, hardly ever. Right. Just because once you empty your tank, it takes a lot to fill it back up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to relate this to hunting. So if you're with TC, we've hunted together quite a bit. Might be a little different than in Canada on this, but especially if we're hunting like a big dry feed, you may call a lot in that dry feed, and you're doing the exact same thing to call ducks. So it's really good training to know how much breath to keep going. It's very similar to it. Mm-hmm. Like it would be way closer to it than on a Main Street call. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you're talking about training, like so in firefighting, we do breath training to kind of calm us down and to make sure we have capacity with our tank, like at the end there. Are you doing any training for like your lung capacity and stuff like that too?
So that's actually, for me, a guy that has done it for a long time now, building your air up is the hardest part because I don't get to practice as often as I used to. So there's times I will hop on a treadmill if I'm only a week out from a contest. I know I don't have the air. I'll hop on a treadmill. I'll go buy a sack of balloons and I'll just blow balloons up all day. I mean, any chance I get, I'm just blowing balloons up. And you just basically trying to stretch your lungs out. And that's the best way. But just blowing your duck call is honestly the best way to build your lungs up, build your air, the best training. Because if you do too much of that, you end up having to retune your call because you built it up so much. And then you're worrying about, do I have it tuned correctly for this contest? And that's just a whole nother nightmare. But yes, I do train a little bit with running on a treadmill and blowing balloons. Yes.
Good. So what would be next for someone? Like once they've kind of done their first competition, like do you get a teacher? What do you do once you got into this competition stuff? Is there anything that can be helpful?
So as soon as the contest is over, a lot of judges will take really good notes of what you did wrong, what you did right, and go ask the judges for their notes. Every judge will be more than happy to help you, and they're going to give you the best feedback possible. And then after that, I had a couple guys that helped me out, like a guy named Trey Crawford who helped me with my feed a lot, and a guy named Wayne Betts who helped me with my Main Street side. Find a guy that has done it a long time, and they're going to hear stuff in you that you can't pick up on yourself, because you can only hear so much and give yourself so much advice until you need a second opinion, or somebody at that contest that you heard was really good, or maybe the guy that won it. Shoot him a text, shoot him a video, a voice recording, and they're going to help you. It's just a big community of guys that's willing to help. I mean, like even Bobby, I mean, he's been around it so much, he could hear what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's willing to help. And honestly,
all of the contest scholars will help you out.
Yeah. Getting notes and finding somebody to that was even at the contest is the best way to do it.
Yeah. So I guess my last question would probably be, as a first-time competitor, is there a duck call? And I'm not saying like a ducklander call. I'm saying if I called you, Bobby, and said, okay, I'm a pretty proficient caller. I'm going to practice for a calling routine. Is there something I should be looking for, like up slope, like?
For a meat call, raspy and loud, because you can always make that call quiet. So you're pretty much not going to run a small bore call for this. Yeah. So I'm not saying nobody does, but for the most part, and one read, you're not going to have a lot of double reads on stage.
So like a single read open water.
Yep.
Is kind of what the generic.
A full ranged call. I mean, because a timber call not going to get loud enough. You're liable to break the reed over, cause it to squeak. Then you're getting cut from the contest. Just a single reed call that you're very comfortable with, that can do all parts of the routine, is the biggest thing.
Okay. And yeah,
And that's
go ahead.
noted, like myself, Bobby, I know, only carries one duck call because they find the one duck call that can be used every day and can hit all spectrums.
Yeah.
I mean, I have blown in a lot of contests with the same call I've hunted with for 10 years.
Yeah.
But mostly you need something with power and volume. Power and volume goes a long way in doing this.
Yeah. And this isn't like, if I was to call Bobby for like an open call, that would be a totally different custom kind of thing. Whereas this is just like, I can grab like one of the ones right off your shelf there, eh, Bobby?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh. So yeah, unless you guys have anything to add, I think that's pretty informative, and hopefully it helps people getting onto that stage, right? So you guys have anything more that we should be discussing here? Because I don't know anything about it. I'm just looking for help, right?
And
if the guy's going to do it, sorry, go ahead, TC.
Another thing because everybody always struggles finding new contests. The best way to find more contests to go to is there's a callingducks.com. They typically have a lot of contests listed. There's a couple Facebook pages, competitive duck and goose callers, that you'll find a lot of duck calling contests. And just get the stage time. You're always going to be nervous. I mean, I get nervous every time. I'm shaking like a leaf before I step up there. The stage time will get you more comfortable and so you'll perform better.
Yeah. And I like to convert that. Oh, sorry, I cut you there.
No, you're fine.
I like to convert that into, like, in the jiu-jitsu world, they always say, like, there's no winners and losers, there's winners and learners, right? Yeah. And just by getting up onto that stage, you're going to learn something. And just by getting up there, you're that much further ahead than the people that haven't even gone on and competed, right? So yeah.
I would mention, I'm not super hip on this. I haven't been on social a lot lately, but I believe it was either Kyle Jones and Mike Benjamin, or it might just be Mike, or it might just be Kyle, but they started, I think it's the IC, International Callers Association, I believe. Have you seen that, TC?
Yep.
Okay. And I believe it is to get people into contest calling. Yep. So, I mean, if you're trying to get into it, that would probably be a good place to start. I think it's just on social. I don't know if it's got a website.
To my knowledge, it's only a social media as well.
Is it the ICA? Is that what it is?
Yep.
Yeah. Any of those guys will help you out.
Yep. And they run an online calling competition too, if I'm thinking.
Yeah, they've been doing that. Yep.
And it's awesome. And you know what? Another thing I would suggest is, like, from what I remember, they posted a lot of the routines, like, she could hear them. Go and have a listen, man. Listen to what's going on and what's being said, and then kind of try and mimic it a little bit, right? So
exactly.
Yeah. Good. Well, guys, that was super informative, and I hope that the listeners got something out of this. So I appreciate your time, guys. All right. Thank you.